All right, let's dive into this. First thing I want to do is just listen to the drums. Foundation-wise, I feel like the song starts, there's no drums for half the song, pretty much. But I still feel like the structure is going to be, the pinnacle point is that really aggressive area. We don't have to dial in a massively focused or super perfect drum tone yet. All I want to do is set up my structure of the song where I know I'm going to have the loudest aspect for the drums. Then I'll pull in the bass, and then I'll probably turn everything back off and open up the tune on the piano. Now listening to it right now, if I just open right in the middle of that aggressive part, this is the tracks that was given to me in my template as is with nothing on it. There's going to be some times where I'll probably not say a lot of stuff and I'll just be moving around and changing stuff. So just kind of bear with me and just feel what I'm doing and seeing what I'm doing and try to pay attention a little bit harder, knowing that sometimes I will not be bringing up every little minute moment of when I'm making small moves. There will be little moves here and there on the faders, and those are the things I'm talking about to get the perfect balance of this cluster hell of a track to all sit together really well. Opening it up. So I have the vocals muted. Pretty much everything else is open. This is just flat out. So it sounds pretty good as is. It's pretty overwhelming at the same time. I'm going to take out the actual orchestra. Take out the guitars. Take out the acoustics. There's some synth stuff doing some really growly things. I'm going to leave the keyboards in, and I'm going to leave the drums and bass in together. And we're going to build this. Again, there's not a terrible amount to do with the drums, but to enhance them. First and foremost, what I want to actually make sure I'm doing is putting the drum bus into the proper channels of my summer. So this is going drums out through the links. I got to make sure that my parallel drum output is doing the same, or we'll be in big trouble, or it's not going to go to the proper bus. I want to pull in a sample for the kick. I got my parallels kind of set. Yeah, it's tricky because honestly, just listening to the drums, they sound really good, but they're still missing something. love Matt Chamberlain's hi-hat work. All right, let's get into it. I'm gonna add a little bit of top EQ. Knowing that the way he has this snare on its own, I think I'm going to splatter it with this compressor first. The MJC is really good at getting quite a bit of smack out of things. And I'm wanting to pulverize this because this will be the parallel pretty much to the snare to get a little more fur out of it. I'm your density, I am your density, I am your density. I am your density is perfect for adding a little more thrust in the snare as well. What I'm doing is I'm just trying to get a little more edge out of it. So when I pull it in together, not getting enough fur. I'm taking my time on this, honestly, because I'm just trying to get the balance correct on the simple side of the drum set. I know that just adding a bunch of compression and EQ, usually just stepping into it, it's going to actually do more damage than good. I'm putting a little more focus on the finesse of the snare because of Matt Chamberlain's historical representation of how he does gross notes and ghosty note stuff on a snare drum. So I'm trying to make sure that's all being picked up correctly by adding the distortion as well. I feel like this compressor is not doing what I want it to do, and I think I want to try a blue stripe. So an 1176 would be a choice decision. Most likely the blue stripe. Okay. There it is. Explosions. So this is with, without. Add a little EQ on the kick. The kick out. I'm going to resort back to factory. I'm going to take out some top. Get a little more meat out of that. Here's the parallel. Now also know that I am doing pre-fader, so I can monitor just the actual distortion feed in. Now if I want to pull in the kick drum as well. So that's just the actual parallel distortion. That's not including the 1176 compressed snare I had that's doing similar parallel things. Pull that whole thing in. Adds a little bit of the fur side of it, but it adds probably too much for the beginning aspect. So what I'm going to do is just automate this little bugger up until the point where the drums really take off. But I also know that that lead in is going to be aggressive. So I'm going to pull in heavier. Gonna go right away in putting some EQ on the overall drum bus, as well as a compressor, most likely the 1178, and maybe even a little bit of decapitator on the overall, but doubtfully yet. I do want it to sound a little compressed and tight, but what I'm noticing is that he's got so much movement and stuff that I'm afraid I'm going to lose some of that transient. So I got to back off the side chain a little bit to make sure that the low end is breathing still. Set my attack and release accordingly to kind of the speed of the tempo of the track, and I usually just track that by using the VU meters, how they're dancing, because if they're going fast, it's not gripping enough. I do a tiny bit of backup. So here's without. Okay, let's do a little level gain. With, without. So you hear the electric guitar in that part, but if you listen to the verse on the top, the acoustic guitar that Denny was playing while we were tracking it. The other thing is, if you listen to the Sony, you can't hear the vocal. So that lab mic that we were using on the acoustic is so separate from the vocal that we just have a clean acoustic guitar take. See here, I decided to take this electric guitar out on the first chorus. If you listen to it here, the right side, that's pretty cool, but what it does is it kind of takes things right off the first chorus, so it makes the second and third chorus not as strong. and it's more repetitive. So I felt, because the second chorus goes like this, that by taking out Reese's right guitar, it's the introduction of the first chorus. So by the time we hit the second chorus and the third chorus, it's elevated a little bit, a little more extreme. I did that also with the background vocals. Even though Laura recorded the same part over and over for these 3 choruses, I dropped these first 2 harmonies down, you can see here, compared to the others. So by the time I hit the second chorus, it elevated the actual background vocals. So you can hear the electric guitar doing that fundamental melody thing that the acoustic was doing there. Now into the second chorus. On guitars, I have a lot of LA3s because this is a classic compressor from the era that really did well by taming top pokes. On the electric guitars, I actually have the LA3s going as well, but some Soothe to handle some of the boxy harshness that I was getting out of the electric guitar from Denny. That's the solo. On this acoustic guitar, I as well have the LA3. But if you see, it's not touching, just a tiny bit. The electric guitar on the left is heavy-handed, maybe a dB.5. The right is barely tucking. Our EQs are top-end centric more than they would on the mid-range. The acoustic guitar, because there was some weird harmonic stuff, because you're shoving a lav mic in an acoustic, there was some weird low-mid stuff that I wanted to be a little more surgical on. So I took the old fab filter on that, add a little Soothe on this to get a little more presence out of it without taking too much life, as what a compressor would do on a multi-band. We do have a couple acoustic strumming parts. If I take out everything but the electric guitars and the strums, these were done in the Village with Denny and Dan, just to get a little life to it. I think we used a 451 on some of the acoustic guitars. What it's really doing, though, is kind of doing that Jeff Lynne sound where you're just getting the air out of it. So we're not really trying to get too much body out of it. In fact, I didn't even EQ anything on the actual instrument, and I didn't EQ anything on the acoustic bus because I felt the way we were EQing it on the front end with the acoustic guitar and the API EQs, we did a filter where we took a lot of the low end out of it. Just sort of the air. There's my fun little part. So we did that acoustic guitar that was a 12 string, and I remember it just never staying in tune, but I did like the way it sounded on these turnarounds. So if we listen to the turnarounds here, you're going to notice that there's a lot of parts on this track. When you start opening it up and soloing it, on its own, it sounds a little funky. So please bear with me. Most of the edits we did while we were cutting this down and comping was in play with everything on. So we made executive decisions based around how everything was playing together and not by itself. So there's probably some really funky edits. I know in the beginning, the acoustic guitar in itself, if you listen to it, it sounds like it's falling on top of each other. That's because of the way that Danny sang. It matched, and I edited the guitar to the voice to make sure that it was all matching with the drums. So there's all these elements. If you listen in Virgin Standing on solo, it sounds a little funky. Just like this acoustic guitar. It's a little loud, but what it's doing is it's adding a little more weight to the chorus. Another element of talking about starting one way and then ending another way, you can hear the 12 string going on the acoustic section of the chorus, and then it cuts out, and then the acoustic 6-string Gibson takes place after it, right here. And it comes back. And then down. This is where the solo's at. We wanted to add a lot of space, so the solo could actually breathe a little bit. And we put a nice big giant fat plate on that solo as well. So let's open up the solo and talk about it. This is Reese Richardson on the guitar. This is on its own. Knowing how Lindsay tracks the guitars, he likes to do like cross playing, where he'll play a melody and sometimes it harmonizes off each other. Sometimes it completely fights against each other, but he'll do that and sometimes lock it in mono. And knowing the guitar tone of this track, I just wanted it to be a little thinner. I wanted a little more fur. So I put the decapitator on it as well, on the end setting. And I put our little trusty phaser on. Topped it off with a little more EQ, bandwidth, and then a little Teletronics LA3A. And popped in the old fat plate. One thing to note as well, on the lead, I'm adding more reverb than I did on the vocals and everything, because I just want it to be its own unique thing where it pops in and then it leaves right back into its full band, full harmonies, everything kicking back. And let's hear how the vocals are going together with this. It's time to bring in Eric's vocal. Now, his vocal was tracked on a U47, I believe, and as is sounds really good. But the issue I know that is coming in when we did this originally was, and just hearing the reference, is there's just too much. He's just too big sounding. So you kind of want him to sit back with the band, but not add too much reverb, but add reverb. So there's that fine line to try to figure out how to get around that.
There I stood in the California sun, searching for peace, hoping for fun. There I stood in the California sun. Searching for peace, hoping for fun.
There's a weird frequency going on. I'm trying to figure it
There I
out.
stood in the California sun.
Yeah, right there.
Searching for peace, hoping for fun. There I stood in the California sun. There I stood in the California sun. Searching for peace, hoping for fun. Not There I stood in the California sun.
I'm going to bring back some of the low end.
There I stood in the California sun. Searching for peace, hoping for fun. There I stood in the California sun. Searching for peace, hoping for fun.
Now this is the Bricasti Sunset Chamber, which I'm a super fan of.
There I stood in the California sun.
I want to make it smaller.
Searching for peace, hoping for fun. Not realizing the age of the assassin had just begun.
That's nice.
There I stood in the California sun. Searching for peace, hoping for fun. Not realizing the age of the assassin had just begun. There I stood in the California sun. Searching for peace.
Take off a little bit of his S's.
Hoping for fun. There I stood in the California sun. There I stood in the California sun. Searching for peace, hoping for fun. Not realizing the age of the assassin had just begun. There I stood in the California sun. Searching for peace, hoping for fun. Not realizing there's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there telling me there's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there telling me that I got to beware. Stop now, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. There's battle lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds, getting so much resistance from behind. Stop now, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop now, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. What a field day for the heat. 1,000 people in the street. They're singing songs and they're carrying signs, mostly saying hooray for our side. Stop, hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop, hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. What
going to pull in a limiter just a little bit so I can just start shaving off some of the edges. This will go to the mastering in a better shape, and if they like it, they can keep it and use the limited version, but I'll send them one without. But this will kind of protect my snare, as I've said in other videos.
Hooray for our side. Stop, hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop, hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. What's going down?
Reference.
Strikes deep into your life. It will creep. It starts when you're always afraid.
Now keep going back to the ATR. The repro high frequency is an EQ on its own, and I like to use that to kind of open things up. If things in general are getting a little bright, I like to kind of tone that down. I feel like we're getting a little bright now, so I just pulled it back just a little bit. Some of the limiter did some of that. Now the limiter is probably only hitting a dB at the very loudest of this entire song, but it's keeping some of the pokiness of the drums intact. I can drop it down maybe a dB or whatever if it needs to be going to the mastering, but I'm probably going to send this to mastering with it on, and I'll just drop down the volume by 2 or 3 dB. That way it's protecting it and it's the sound I like.
Hooray for our side. Stop, hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop, hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
I'm not going to touch the EQ, but I will use it as the lineup, which is the 2520 and the transform modeling. Stereo image shifts crazy in a cool way. Now I want to clamp it just a little bit with my trusty sidekick, the glue. Snare is still sticking too high. So the standard clip is used to just trim that very top half of the snares, the drums, whatever it's going to be. I could put that on the drum bus. I feel like by putting it on everything, once everything gets brought up with the limiter, it kind of glows really better. I don't know if the right word is close, but it definitely sits a lot better together than if you just put it on the drum bus. Key with this song was to keep it as simple, I think, when they were producing it, not having 7,000 guitars going. But I am having a little bit of a fight with making it sound enough like punchy, enough rock. I feel like maybe the drums are a little too clean. So guess what's coming back on? I don't hate it. Pulling the vocals just for a couple of minutes just to start seeing how this is going to set.
Damn, she had a good head and a pretty face.
It's doubled, sounds pretty good.
Well, if you try to love her like I did, well, then you'll scrape the bottom like I did.
Do feel like it needs a couple things. I'm going to leave the LA2A out. I'm going to pull in that Waves BB tubes again to see if it helps. It's been kind of not winning on the last couple of things I've been using, regardless of the hype of certain things.
Don't come back here with her in your head. Damn, I said love don't need to be psychotic.
No, hate it. I don't love it.
Well, if you try to love her like I did, you got to try to find one without those demons in her head. Picking up the pieces with you, we can go and spend the sunny days on the roof. Mellow out our heads and we're down. For anything we're singing, we don't need an excuse. Don't come back here with her in your head.
So TJ's vocals are doubled, but they're a little loose. And that sounds pretty cool, to be honest. It sounds almost like chorus, so I'm going to go with that. But I have a little bit of a harshness going on, where it's almost like he's sitting a little far from the mic.
Without those demons in her head, picking up the pieces with you.
So far, so good, but I need some fur.
Days on the roof. Mellow out our heads and we're down. For anything we're singing, we don't need an excuse.
I'm going to pull in the trusty sidekick decapitator on the final of this guy. It just works on vocals, and this song needs a little bit of that push.
Don't come back here with her in your head. Damn, I said love don't need to be psychotic.
Here's the sunset again, just a little bit.
Well, if you try to love her like I did, you got to try to find one without those demons in her head, picking up the pieces with you. We can go and spend the sunny days on the...
Even if the vocal doesn't sound like it's sitting in a huge tub of wetness, you still have a bit of decree and separation, some depth that's happening with the vocal. And I will get into this more once we start doing automation passes and stuff. But you'll notice that if I take the reverb off, the Seventh Heaven, which is just the Seventh Heaven plugin, it's really, there's not a lot to it. It's 2.8 second decay. It's wet, full on. There might be a tiny bit of pre-delay, but I don't want to put a terrible amount of pre-delay on it because I'm using it on the guitars and other instruments. I probably will even use it a little bit on the drums, and just to create a little more of a performance sound. Not to sound like arena rock or anything, but just a tiny bit.
Damn, I said love don't need to be psychotic. Well, if you try to love her like I did, you got to try to find one without those demons in her head, picking up the pieces with you. We can go and spend the sunny days on the roof, mellow out our heads when we're down. For anything we're singing, we don't need an excuse. Damn, I said found her after giving up the race. Damn, she had a good head and a pretty face. Well, if you try to love her like I did, well, then you'll scrape the bottom like I did. If you're grasping straws like I did, you got to wait to find one without those demons in her head, picking up.
Right, now that we got the mix pretty good balance-wise and sonically, I'm going to start thinking about the elements that are bothering me. Before I do any automation or anything in that nature, I want to decide what's going on with the bottom octave of the bass. Let's listen to the introduction of the song and do a really good focus on figuring out what's going on with the bottom end of the bass.
Somebody bring me inside. Yeah, yeah. Whoa. Yeah, yeah. A cold wind carried through me. She left my name bare. Clung further than I've ever.
So sometimes in production, we like to augment or add certain elements. This happens with drums. This happens with any kind of element that is not sticking through. When you're a mixer and you get tracks that your hands are tied, you have to be a little creative with what you do. Sometimes it's processing with analog gear. Sometimes it's tape. Sometimes it's triggers. And sometimes it's replacing or augmenting with a similar sound. So today's little trick is about getting the bottom octave out of a bass guitar if it's not there. If you try to use an octavize system or some kind of harmonic R bass, that's not necessarily what I'm trying to go for. I'm talking about the bottom air that you get from synths and anything that has a beautiful, beautiful low end sound. On this track, there is a lot of upper register bass on the intro and the choruses. So there's really not a lot of foundation air. So what I do is, of course, asking the permission of the artist to make sure it's okay. But like I like to do is to transfer the audio to MIDI, the bass guitar, find a nice filter synth sound that's low bass, and tuck that underneath. Just do the solid whole notes of the bass octave down, and then mix that underneath. And it should, in theory, just add a little bit more weight and a little more bottom octave. And I'll show you how to do that here. Right now, we'll just have it as a standard instrument track. And then I will right-click the audio of the bass guitar, copy it as audio to MIDI, and there's a bunch of different algorithm settings you have to go through. Polyphonic decay is probably going to be the best for this choice. It'll process through it, and then we paste it into the instrument track, and it's there. So what we're going to need to do, though, is considering if we just listen to the bass, he's playing multiple notes. Okay, so a lot of that is, I don't need to hear anything but the fundamental of the bottom end of the note. After your audio is transferred to MIDI, pull up some sort of synthesizer that you're happy with the low end of. I like to use the FabFilter 1 as it has a really good kind of sub harmonic air synth in there. And it's usually comes with the bundle for FabFilter, so a lot of people actually have it. Once you get into it, you hit Control equals, and this will open up your MIDI template. And all I really want to do is not grab any of the very busy bass stuff. If you see, I don't need all that stuff. So if I just grab this into the next chart, I create the bass track based around the part itself of the bottom octave. And this will allow me to get a really, really clean low end. That I can tuck underneath the actual bass guitar. So let me edit this really fast and come up with something, and then we can look at it when it's done. All right, so now that we have the MIDI edited down to the way the part I want, I'm going to only use the intro, the verses, and the choruses for this, because this will be able to take it up, and then it'll drop down for the verses, and then the choruses will take it up again, and we have to tuck it in for our taste. But before we do that, let's just listen to the part I put in there. Now, after we do that, I want to combine the bass and the synth together. Remember, the bass is on its own going through the effects bus, clean with no reverb or anything. And the bass DI, which is the bass guitar, is going through the normal bass bus. So combined with the whole track sounds something like this. And then out. Then back in with the synth bass. Now, here it falls out because the verse is going and it brings everything down. I'm going to do some automation where it will create a lot of movement here.
I'm just a little bit empty. I'm just a little bit scared is all, and I'm hiding out in the doorway. Somebody bring me inside.
Comes right back in for the... It's out here again. listen to that guitar part. So the bass part of the melodic bass comes in here. I don't know if we need that section. It's a little busy sounding. If we just play the guitar and the bass here. Too much, but what if I pan it to the hard right? Let me just see what we got. I'm fine with that if it's hard pan to the right and the bass is going to the left. Good. On just a little bit of the drums, getting a little more thick punch out of it.
Just a little bit scared is all.